But I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. Honestly, it's the hardest decision of my life. But it is the right decision for me. For the last 4 years or so, I've been in this cycle of injury, pain, rehab, injury, pain, rehab. And it's been unceasing and unrelenting, both in season, and off season. And I felt stuck in it, and the only way I see out is to no longer play football. It's taken my joy of this game away, and this. Sorry. I've been stuck in this process. I haven't been able to live the life I want to live. Taking the joy out of this game. And after 2016, where I played in pain and was unable to regularly practice, I made a vow to myself that I would not go down that path again. I find myself in a similar situation, and the only way forward for me is to remove myself from football in this cycle that I've been in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Colts Cover-2 podcast. I am IndyStar Colts insider Jim Ayello, and
by saying that, you mean that we actually have done this before, and the world didn't start like about 9:30 on Saturday night, right?
Yeah, there was nothing that happened before that. We're AL after luck right now. That's where we're at. By the way, that was Colts insider Joel A. Erickson, just so you know, who's chiming in here and is going to have a lot of thoughts on what we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're going to. I think this is 3 episodes, and 2 of them will be just completely Andrew Luck, which is pretty much what this is.
And I have no regrets about the first one being about Andrew Luck after knowing what we know now, and I kind of wish the second one would have been more about Andrew Luck.
Yeah, if we had only known, and we'll get into that, what we knew ahead of time, and some of the things that led to this. Maybe I think I don't think nobody knew that he was going to retire, but we knew he was struggling with his recovery, and that turned out to be what kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in a way. So we'll get into that. Like I said, we'll try to answer as many of your Andrew Luck questions today. We were in day 2 of the Andrew Luck fallout, which was Colts players and Frank Reich getting the chance to kind of share their feelings and share their thoughts about what had happened. So lots to get into, but I think one of the more interesting things, what was your reaction when you found out on Saturday night? Because obviously, again, none of us expected this. We knew he was there Saturday. We knew he was talking to players. He was down there. It wasn't working out, but, we saw him and we thought, okay, still might have a chance to play week 1.
Well, I think, and this doesn't make me any different from a lot of people, but when Schefter's tweet first came across, I just kept thinking it had to be a fake somehow. Now, for a couple of reasons, namely that I block just about any fake Schefter that I see.
Smart.
It wasn't likely in my head. I knew that, but it just seemed so impossible that, like, I was a little bit paralyzed for a second, and then you start trying to, once you realize that is Schefter, that's blue check mark, he's tweeting about it again, you start trying to figure out if it's true, and it sort of quickly became apparent that it was true. And I've covered some weird stories in my career and some pretty insane moments. I covered the Minneapolis Miracle when the Saints lost on that insane touchdown pass. When I covered Auburn, I was there for the kick 6. And I don't think anything, even plays as bombshelly as that, matches what happened on Saturday.
No, I mean, what we're talking about is literally, and I say this, unprecedented. We have never seen a 29-year-old MVP caliber quarterback walk away from football. It's never happened. We've seen Barry Sanders, we've seen Calvin Johnson, we've seen Michael Jordan in other sports. Tiger Woods has obviously been derailed, but nothing like this. Nothing compares to.
And then even more than that, 2 weeks before the start of the regular season.
I mean,
Barry Sanders retired right before the start of training camp. But that's still not. That's 6 weeks before the start of the regular season. That's a whole month ago.
Yeah.
It's just not for it to happen when it did, how it did, and honestly, and Jim Irsay said this a ton on Saturday night, but I think it's worth thinking about. No one thought that a calf strain would turn into the end of Andrew Luck's career.
Yeah, who? I mean, we talked about the shoulder. I mean, the shoulder would make so much more sense if you couldn't throw anymore. That would be it. But what it turned out to be was another injury in a long, long line of injuries that just Andrew got him to say, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. It's this constant cycle of pain. Frank Reich talked about this today. It's pain, rehab, and just constant for 4 years. It's what it's been. And
and it seems to me that it's the injuries, but it's more so than the injuries. It's the way that his shoulder lingered and didn't react the way it was supposed to, and it's the way this injury is lingering and not reacting the way it's supposed to.
He's still in pain.
And I think just the frustration that comes with that and feeling that he has to get out there and not being able to and being frustrated with his own body and really looking into the idea of, do I want to play in pain for the rest of my career?
Yeah, that's what he had to decide. If he had decided, he put his, and we've seen so many NFL players now kind of voice their opinions in support, I think almost all of them in support of Andrew Luck, saying he chose himself, his family life, his health ahead of football. And that can be commended, respected. For me, I know there are a lot of fans out there that are frustrated, Colts fans, and I get it. I get, you're confused, you're angry. This is the star quarterback that should be leading your team or could be leading your team for the next decade, really. If he has the same longevity as a guy like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. But that's not what he wanted. And you can't kind of thrust those things upon him. He wanted to be able to take care of his body and do other things, and that's what he's going to do. So good on him.
Yeah, I think the thing I keep coming back to is just that Andrew Luck's not motivated the way other great players at his position are. When he talked on Saturday night about why he loves to play the game, what he's trying to do, what made him come back to the game after the shoulder, he said it was he just likes throwing the ball to his friends, and he loves throwing the ball to T.Y. Hilton, and that's a more simple, elemental feeling and love of football than it is for the Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or some of the people who've made it to these long careers and been deep in there. Because Tom Brady is motivated, everyone knows, by thinking that the whole world hates him and thinks he's terrible.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is sort of motivated the same way and motivated by this need to just kill and the thing you're used to with athletes. Brees still has a couple of draft profiles that he keeps with him. I mean, he's the NFL's all-time leading passer, for goodness sakes, and he's still looking at things people said about him in the draft, people who might not even be draft evaluators anymore. So those guys are motivated by competition and proving people wrong, and the fight for, I guess, the Super Bowl, I think, in a way that Andrew Luck doesn't say that he is.
Yeah.
He loves throwing the ball and being with his teammates and sort of the stuff that all of us kind of started playing sports for. And he's not necessarily driven to push his body to new heights. Peyton Manning, obviously, his neck had to be fused, and he kept playing anyway because he's motivated to compete and to be the best. And Andrew Luck's just not motivated that way. And because he's not motivated that way, that's why we're here.
Is that, and we talked to the players today, most of them seem to understand, but in your opinion then, is that a betrayal of your teammates' trust in that they expected you to be out there through thick and thin to help them win? So, I mean, what do you think of that? What is your opinion on that?
I defer to the Colts. And from what we heard today, I think that I think Jacoby Brissett, Ryan Kelly said they didn't necessarily understand it first, but the more he talked, the more they sort of got it. And the guys who've been with Andrew Luck a long time know him. They know him well. T.Y. Hilton knows him well. Anthony Costanzo knows him well. They talked about, wanting him. Jacoby Brissett put it, I guess, the simplest. He said, at the end of it, you just want your friend to be happy.
Right.
And it's interesting how something that seems so complex and like this decision that seems like such a massive decision comes down to like such small things.
Sure.
Like we're talking about, I like throwing the ball to my friends. I want to be able to live the life I want to live. At the end of the day, you just want to see your friend happy. These are simple, elemental things, and I don't think. I mean, nobody wants to lose their starting quarterback 2 weeks before the start of the regular season. It's just not. No one wants to. But I think that from what we heard today, and we talked to a lot of players, I think, probably somewhere between 10 and 20, however many you can talk to in an hour-long or 45-minute session in a locker room. I think the more Andrew talked, the more they sort of understood it. And if anybody doesn't, that we haven't heard from them and maybe won't.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll ever hear one of these current players voice their displeasure about that. But let's rewind to Saturday night. What struck you about the night, how it unfolded, about the news conference that Luck had, and then the one that we heard from, like you said, Jim Irsay, Frank Reich, and Chris Ballard? Because to me, it was a mournful night in a way. It really was. I think for Andrew and for them and for the hierarchy of the Colts, who also had to say, we're going to miss Andrew, but this team still exists and we're still going to move forward. I also want to ask you about how that was negotiated that entire night, because it obviously wasn't the way things were supposed to play out. That was not the way that the Colts wanted to handle Andrew Luck's retirement. They wanted him to be able to kind of do it on his own terms, tell his team after the game on Saturday, and then address the world on Sunday, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out to me, mournful is probably a good word, but I think there's just the other word I think that's kind of the operative word here was shock. And Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard and Frank Reich had known. At that point, they'd known 6 days.
I think Monday was when they
the
knew it
first
was
time.
like this is where we're going to sit down and talk to you
Monday
guys.
was when Andrew Luck sat down and talked with them, so they'd known for 6 days. And Frank Reich at one point said that it wasn't a new thing for them. They'd kind of had time to process it. But I thought Jim Irsay was still clearly pretty shocked. He kept referencing over and over again, you never think when you get a call from the trainer in mid-March that Andrew's got a little bit of a calf issue that's going to end with your quarterback retiring 15 days before the season.
He also seemed in denial, by the way. Like, he talked multiple times about a comeback and was asked about a comeback and very much left the door open for something like that to happen. Whereas Andrew kind of, if he didn't slam the door, he closed it pretty hard, saying, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, Andrew...
I don't know if you call it denial or bargaining, but...
Andrew Luck, I think, is such a thoughtful person. It's hard for me to think that he didn't consider the long-term ramifications of it, because he obviously had options. They could have put him on IR. He could have started the season on the roster and just kept trying to get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
He could have gone on IR and sat out. He could have, I guess, gone through sort of what the dance that they did in 2017, where he's sort of coming back and then he's not. You know what I mean?
Ugh. Don't bring it up.
Well, I think most Colts fans would take it back if they could get it back in 2020.
That's probably true.
But he seemed he said, I can't see the future, but clearly I don't see that he's coming back to football in the future. And it's, again, like Irsay mentioned Michael Jordan and he mentioned Tiger Woods, and the thing about, there's a difference between Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and Andrew Luck, and it's the killer, like the not on the field. I'm not saying Andrew Luck isn't the same as those guys on the field, because I think everyone saw in his time here that if you put Andrew Luck in the middle of a game, down by whatever, he's going to do whatever he has to win.
Yep.
He loves playing the game. He wants to win. He competes that way. But I think when you're off the field, I don't think Andrew Luck is going to be standing up somewhere the way Jordan did at his Hall of Fame announcement and say, like, still be talking about the people who slighted him.
Calling out the doubters, yeah. Getting the guy who cut him when he was in high school, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not Luck.
And so there's a difference between those guys who've had comebacks and who didn't, and Andrew. Yeah, it's interesting. He's a singular he's a singular person in sports. Are a lot of times sports that people are motivated in similar ways because it's sort of what makes you do this stuff to get to this point and play through injury and become great. So, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been through several injuries. Drew Brees' shoulder almost got torn off. Like Peyton Manning's neck again. Like those guys, they've all have these similar things, and it's because you have to do a lot to play through this stuff. And Andrew's just he's just different. He's a different person with different motivations and goals. And I think that the key thing here is I don't think either side is wrong. It's just what somebody wants. Andrew Luck wants to live his life. He doesn't want to have to go through pain. Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or Tom Brady they want to win and be competitive and be and chase greatness. And you know what? If that's what they want, it's hard to get to. It's just different. It's just different. And Andrew Luck, because of his incredible talent, ended up in this position. It would have stayed in this position if he felt like he could have joy, but without joy, he doesn't. He didn't have it to keep going in him over and over again and going through this. And it's sort of, I think he sort of felt like it's going to. The longer he goes, the worse it's going to be. He wasn't willing to sacrifice that anymore, and that's totally understandable. You mentioned there's no wrong there, and I agree with you in that sense. I do think there is a wrong in this entire situation, and I do think it was the Colts fans who booed Andrew Luck. I don't know if that's a controversial take or not, but I don't really care. I think you booed a guy that like I said, we talked to these players, we talked to Chris Ballard, all the guys that said that this guy gave a ton to the organization, gave it a lot. I mean, 7 years of his life, 8 years of his life trying to make this a Super Bowl winning organization. I don't think he ever stopped short because he didn't care or anything like that. And he finally had had enough. And I think you should respect a man that knows his limits and knows that's all he wanted to do. So I actually should say, I think a lot of people have asked about the booing. I think it was a small collection of Colts fans that did it. And I think if they probably had all the information, again, we keep talking about Saturday night was pandemonium. It was wild. I mean, you're looking at your phone, you see Adam Schefter says Andrew Luck's retiring. You don't know why. You don't know exactly the context. You don't know what's going on. These fans are emotional. I was confused. I bet they were confused too. They booed Andrew Luck. I would imagine a lot of them regret making that decision. Well, and if I remember right, I remember thinking, and I can't remember what Adam Schefter's first tweet was, but I remember thinking that he worded it in a way where it seemed like Andrew Luck had gone to Jim Irsay at like halftime.
Yeah.
And said he was retiring, and then was like, then he's down on the field. Like, you didn't get Andrew saying why. You didn't get the fact that they'd been talking about it. You didn't get any of that stuff. It was just there's this news. And like I said, I had a misconception on like that it happened like while we were at the game somehow.
Right.
And that seemed insane.
Right. We were confused. This is what happens.
And I don't know. I wouldn't have booed. I think the shock of the moment probably plays a role in
For sure.
it. And it was a gut reaction. I think I agree with you. I don't think there's many fans that would be too happy, I guess, that they did that. Ryan Kelly today said that he thought it was bull. Word I can't say.
Marlon Mack agreed. Used a similar word.
And I tweeted it, and I'd say that the thing I noticed, I've got like 7 or 8 replies or 9 replies, and usually most of those replies are from people who disagree with Kelly and think it's fine that they booed. But I was like 200 likes or 300 likes or something like that now on the tweet, and I think that means that that's probably the ratio in terms of.
Yeah,
how people feel.
I agree with you. And to be 100% honest, I guess if I'm telling the truth, I'm not a booing guy. I think booing is. I just don't. I don't think there's a cheer or boo. I think you cheer, and you've been around these players enough, even as a fan, even before I think I became a sports journalist covering professional athletes. It was just you knew these guys are out there working their butts off. They want to succeed. When the guy swings and misses at strike 3, it's not because he didn't want to hit it. He really, really did. And so it's hard for me to boo somebody that is really trying their best. And so I'm not a big booing guy in general. So I guess that I have to kind of classify it that way.
I do think I understand, though, the feeling of that the rug sort of got ripped out from under you.
Yeah, 100%. As a season ticket holder, I would feel that way. Like, hey, this is not what I signed up for. I wouldn't call and ask for my tickets back, but
just because this team with Andrew Luck was predicted to be a Super Bowl contender,
Yeah.
and you feel like, and not just that, not just a contender this year, but people have been talking about it as being set up for years, setting up for 5-6 years, and there's uncertainty in that now. And as a fan, you don't want that. You just got back what you had for so many years in Indianapolis with a successful team, and you don't want to have the possibility of that not happening. And obviously, quarterback's the most important position, and I think that's understandable. But yeah, the biggest thing I think was just shock. Like, there was a shock through the NFL, a shockwave went through the fan base.
yeah.
And you get some reactions that are one way or the other. I'll be honest, I don't care so much about that storyline.
The booing?
I don't.
Okay.
Because fans are going to react how fans react.
Yeah.
And obviously fans are the people who are listening to this podcast.
Yeah, and subscribing. So, yeah, be careful what you say.
But I don't think it's as something that needs to be as dissected as it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably a bad. It was a bad reaction to the news.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Does it have to be this think piece? Do we have to have this like question of whether or not fans are? I don't know. Like,
No.
I think I'm more interested. I'm less interested in whether I'm less interested in going back and forth on booing, and more interested in where do the Colts go from here?
Yeah.
Why did Andrew Luck do this? That kind of thing. And the booing has really taken on a life of its own, I feel like, in the conversation, where we're almost talking about that as much as we're talking about why Andrew Luck made this decision. And so that's me. That's a personal thing with me. I generally, you admitted you're not a booing type of guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a, oh boy, I gotta be careful how I say this. I'm not a,
It's confession time with Joel and Jim.
I'm not an external controversy type of person.
Okay. You don't embrace the debate, as they say?
Yeah, no, that might be a good way to put it. I'm more interested in the people at the center of it. I'm trying really hard not to say something that's going to insult a bunch of people who maybe do care about it, but it's just not something that, honestly, it's not something I thought a ton about.
Yeah, I didn't.
On Sunday.
Here's why I care in one context. I'm not from here in Indianapolis, but I've lived here for a long time now, 5 or 6 years now, and I got defensive a little bit of people thinking this is what Indianapolis is. And I didn't want people to think that's a reflection of what Indianapolis is.
Anybody who does that is doing essentially the same thing that the fans who booed did. They're coming up with a shock reaction to something they saw, and they're not actually thinking it through. Like, I
agree, but it's like I said, I just don't like.
Colts fans have never been known as the people who boo Santa Claus or like insane like in that way. And I think for that reason, like, you can't paint the city of Indianapolis as, I don't know, like.
We could be done. We could be done with this if you want.
We're getting further and further.
We can be done.
We're getting further and further into a topic that I'm like, yeah, it happened, and I get why players are mad, and I get why it hurt Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
And
we won't talk about it again. You're right. This will be it. This will be done. I mean, the players won't talk about it again, and the media won't report it anymore. It'll be it. That'll be done.
No, I think it's going to keep going.
I don't think so.
I think this is going to keep getting mentioned. Like, it is.
Maybe outside media or outside outside of Indianapolis. I think we'll move past it because we have so many other things to talk about, which is a great segue into what we're going to talk about next, which is Jacoby Brissett talking today and Frank Reich. I thought you had a very interesting point about what we heard from Frank Reich today, based on the fact that you have spent a lot of time with him in the last year and a half, especially away from the field, and kind of saw him in that pastor role in a way. I think somebody said this. I don't know where I heard it, but today was kind of what Frank Reich was built for, what he was ready for. These are the kind of moments that he can step up into.
I think it's there's something about Frank where he no one enjoys being in the bad moments. Nobody likes having to be in them. You don't want them to happen. But I think that there are some people who are wired to really step into those moments and step up to those moments. And Frank Reich's kind of been that guy. When I talked to him about being a pastor, I kind of went into that story wanting to ask him about what it's like to have been in football your whole life and then deal with the stuff that pastors have to deal with, which is they have to deal with very difficult life situations. You're a counselor. You have to be there when people die. You have to be there when people find out they have cancer. You have to you're constantly dealing with the worst things that people have to deal with. And I kind of went in thinking I wanted to see how he reacted to that. And the answer is, that's why he was a pastor. Frank Reich is wired, his wife said it, to get the best out of people. And he wants to step in when they're at their and help. He wants to be there and help. And then you take it to his football career, his comebacks. Everyone knows about the Bills' comeback. People have sort of forgotten, I think, a little bit about the fact that he also directed the biggest comeback in college football history.
Yeah, he's got
But
both.
what you don't know going into what most people also don't remember is he was the starter at the beginning of that season and got hurt and lost his job. And him directing that comeback was him getting his job back at the same time. And you got to think about if you're a senior quarterback in college football who's got NFL hopes. He'd already been invited to the Senior Bowl. He'd already done this stuff. And all of a sudden you lose your job. What you're actually thinking. It feels like maybe this is slipping away.
Yeah.
And when he gets back in the fire, he leads the greatest comeback in college football history. Last year, 1-5.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah,
everyone's gonna bring that up. He sort of thrives in these moments, and you saw why. I thought today at the beginning of the press conference, where he comes in and he's got something prepared and it's ready to go, and you get to see the Frank Reich, the motivator. He doesn't always come off that way because he's incredibly intelligent and soft-spoken. He's not like your typical fire and brimstone coach. But at first with guys like that, people are always wondering, well, how did they fire people up? And you have to see Frank talk the way he talked in his press conference today to see why. When he's really passionate about something and when he feels like he's stepping into something, his voice starts to rise and you can feel energy, and he kind of leans forward a little bit with his upper body, and he's a big man. I don't know if people know that at home from watching on TV, but he's a very big man. Height-wise, and he starts to seem almost bigger, and you're just okay, I get this. It's partially from his time as a pastor and being used to that speaking thing, but there are a lot of pastors who don't have that kind of presence, and it's just part of Frank's ability to speak, and I think that's kind of what this stuff brings out in him. And there's a passion for it. No, we can still do this.
Yeah,
and whether or not they will remains to be seen, but it helps to have somebody in the leader's chair who's like that.
I would say it looks like Jim Irsay brought in the right guy for this situation. I mean, I don't know how, we don't have to get into it, but how would a guy like Chuck Pagano handle a situation like this? I don't know if it would be the same. And it looks like Frank, given his background, like you said, as a pastor, given his background as a quarterback, he's a leader of men. I mean, I don't think there's any better way to put it. He's a leader of men. And also, I wanted to bring this up real quick. All the things you said about it, the way him helping people and guiding them and doing that kind of thing, it just very much makes me think why this team has Chad Kelly on its roster. We can get into that another time, but I think he's very much the kind of guy that thinks he can help a guy like Chad Kelly.
And Chris Ballard is too.
100%. He cares about these people.
He's said before that his natural instinct is to think he can help and save everybody. So
right.
That's both of them. I think if you ask both of them, I think Chris Ballard specifically has been through some really tough stuff since he took over for the Colts.
It's a lot already.
And to his credit, they've been successful, but I think you'd probably rather. I think you can say this. You'd probably rather not have to deal with this.
Maybe one day the Colts can.
But they've been through. Both of them have been through fire before. And this is let's not minimize this. This is big. Obviously, Andrew Luck is everything anybody's talking about. But they've been through it before, and so they're kind of wired in these situations a certain way.
I agree. This is significant, but Chris said it during the press conference. No one died. Like, a guy retired from football. He stopped playing a game. Like, I mean, again, it's a huge deal for the Colts and for this franchise, and I get it. But
Well, and I think it's worth it to mention too. It's not just the on the field stuff or Josh McDaniels leaving. They lost Edwin Jackson.
yeah, exactly. This is what I mean. No one died, and Frank.
Yeah, they lost Edwin Jackson.
Frank, like you said, has dealt with real things, not people stop playing football.
Yeah, and so they care about it. It's not to say they don't care about it,
Of course they do.
but there's perspective there, and they know how to bounce back. Nobody circles the wagons like the Indianapolis Colts.
No, they do. I mean, you saw like that. Nice. No, I mean, but you saw this town even like rebounded with Chuck Pagano when he went through his fight with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think this town understands what is football and what is a game and what is real life, and I think they understand where to put their values there. And again, I think everyone's a little frustrated and everyone's a little sad. I mean, we got a guy. I think that's the reason we saw Chris Ballard and Jameer and Frank Reich. I think they were all in tears at one point during Saturday night. But I don't think it was because they've lost their franchise quarterback. I mean, obviously they're not happy about it. But I think it was because they saw someone who used to love the game so much have that ripped away from him. And that is sad. To have somebody's childlike love for a game gone and for it to be so sapped out of him that he just says, I can't do this anymore. That is sad. That is very sad. I mean, we all had childhood dreams. A few of us get to live them, but he did. And then to have it kind of ripped away is it's tough.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It's just it's interesting to think about it as just a one of a kind event. We don't know. We don't, like you mentioned earlier, how other coaches would react. There's not really a way for us to know.
No.
Because no one else has ever gone
No,
through
it's never
this.
happened. It's literally unprecedented. I keep saying that.
There's no way to know how anybody reacts to this. I do think, I mean, it's important not to minimize that this is a big deal in terms of you losing your starting quarterback.
For sure.
50. If tomorrow New England lost Tom Brady to a catastrophic injury, it would be a big deal. If Green Bay loses Aaron Rodgers, as they have in the past, with injury, it'd be a big deal.
Yeah.
And so it is a big deal. It's something they're going to have to overcome and figure out and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's completely unprecedented to have someone retire. And I think that I don't think we know yet how that affects it or changes it. We don't. That's the other thing. We're 2 days out.
Yeah. We don't know.
And we think we know, but we don't.
Well, I mean, so here's the funny thing. I thought, and again, this is our own employer, IndyStar, but we had an article up that I don't think you wrote and I didn't write about the 10 quarterbacks in the NFL draft that the Colts could potentially select. And I was like, oh boy, we are looking far out in the future. We don't give Jacoby a chance here before we start looking at the quarterbacks in the draft. And I mean, it's just, but again, like maybe in 3 months, you and I are watching tape of Tua and Jake Fromm and Herbert and those guys because this hasn't worked out with Jacoby. Or we're saying, man, that article was silly. Jacoby's looking great. Looks like he's going to be an NFL starter for years to come.
Yeah, there's really, but and that's the thing about the media cycle, and we're part of it, and we're involved in it
For sure.
And you try to look forward and look back. Like with something like this, you're trying to look forward and look back at the same time, which is almost impossible. But you're thinking you have to think that there are no quarterbacks on this roster right now who are under contract for next season.
Nope.
So that's also looming here.
Oh, to be by the point, the article, it deserved to be written. I should say that. It should have been written. I just was like, man, we are looking right past the whole season of stuff or just assuming something. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no, it is, like I said, to my editor who's probably listening to this at one point, it was a good idea. But when I saw it, it was kind of shocking.
But yeah, no, it's tough. It's really hard to be in the moment and go. But that's what everyone does. Like the job is predictions, and people like predictions. They want to know how it's going to be, and we don't know. We sort of think we do, but we really don't. Like, let's take Jacoby Brissett for example. What we've all seen of Jacoby Brissett is a player thrown into a new team with 2 weeks to learn the offense, and a team that couldn't protect him, didn't run the ball very well. Just a straight terrible situation for anybody to get thrown into.
Yeah.
This is different. He's been in this system for 2 years. He's taken every snap, every single full team snap.
1,200, I think Frank Reich said.
Yes, it has been taken by Jacoby. This also, he's got much better talent on the offensive line. This isn't the team that I can't remember how many sacks he gave. He took a ton of sacks.
It was 10 alone against Jacksonville in like the first half that year.
This team gave up
brutal.
This team gave up 18 all of last season.
Right.
And so, yeah, you might think we might think we know what we've seen out of Jacoby Brissett. And there were times in practice they seemed uneven. There were times, but you don't know anything until they start playing the games. And this is a very different situation. And so I don't fully know what to expect. I know I'm supposed to because it's my job, but I don't fully know what to expect once they kick off against the Chargers.
I don't think like you said, I don't think you can. As much as it would be great if we knew. What we do know, I guess what we can say is this team, I don't think they're just saying it. I really do think this team believes in Jacoby Brissett. I really think Frank Reich believes when he says, I think he's a top 20 quarterback based on the film that I watched of him play a couple years ago, that's the kind of upside that this guy has. I do believe that when T.Y. Hilton says we're going to be okay, we have number 7. He's got a little swag. We love it. Like, we're going to play like that with him. We believe in him. Maybe there's, I'm sure there's a little doubts in their mind because they haven't seen him for that long, but I really do fully believe that they think this guy can lead us to where we want to go.
Well, one of the things that struck me today while we were in the locker room is there's going to be a lot of things asked of Jacoby and written about Jacoby in terms of how he's going to respond and how he's going to rise to this occasion. And in some ways, he doesn't have to rise to anything. This is a guy who already was a team leader.
Yep.
He was already loved through the whole locker room. He's already and it's not just that he's loved. I think people see the photos and stuff like that, but he's a guy who also is not afraid to call people out and demand stuff from them as a backup. And so he's in a leadership role. He doesn't have to take more of a leadership role like you think of when a backup takes over because he's already there.
Right. The defense loves him for how he
doesn't have to. A quarterback's job a lot of the time is that ability to inspire people and stuff like that, and he's already kind of there. So the question is really just football-wise what we're going to see out of him. And like I said earlier, we've seen a 58, 59% passer before, but it's a very different system.
Yep.
It's a very different offensive line. It's a very different situation. And you can maybe be a little bit inaccurate and still successful. Cam Newton.
Yeah. Oh, and plus this team has a much better, we talked about the offense, but the team has much better defense than it had a couple of years ago. And so he might not be asked or needed to do as much in those situations. I think this defense is going to be better than they were last year, and they were already surprisingly good. So I think that is something that Jacoby might not have to, you don't have to be Andrew Luck. We talked about this before. He said it today during the press conference. Jacoby Brissett is going to be Jacoby Brissett. We saw the guy takes care of the ball. And we've seen that in at least the 15 games we saw him start. He only threw 7 interceptions, threw 13 touchdowns, ran for 4 more. He put up some decent numbers. I mean, there's reason to like this guy. Now, like you said, in training camp and in some of the preseason, it hasn't been great, except that he looked really, really good against Cleveland.
He looked fantastic against Cleveland.
Looked great against Cleveland, so maybe that's something to hang your hat on.
I think his performance against Cleveland may have been a little underrated.
Okay.
I think people looked at there was a ball he threw behind Jack Doyle, and there was a pass that was tough that he probably could have hit to Zach Pascal, but also was a very tough throw.
Yeah.
And, I get it. There was a ball behind Jack Doyle, but you know what? There are some balls that all quarterbacks throw that they don't like to have in games. That's why no one goes 27 of 27 or 35 of 35. Right. So I think the stuff you saw from him moving in the pocket was huge. And I think that the throw he made in the touchdown was just kind of a glimpse of, oh, wow. That's a really hard throw. And there's a lot of backups in the league who can't make that throw the way he made it in that situation.
All right, before we wrap up here, because I think we went through pretty much all of the things that I think I wanted to get through with this, but let's kind of zoom out and go big picture because, like you said, this is something no franchise has dealt with ever. And we have to kind of let it play out, have some patience, I think, to see what's going to happen before we start jumping to conclusions. But to get back to Andrew Luck, which I think is where we need to add this has been, I don't know, again, shocking and sad to see a guy's career that we think we could have gone a lot further and been
Well, I
a
think
potential Hall of Fame player.
I think that it's this question with it, like the story around him is always going to kind of be what might have been.
Right. That's where it is now, right?
It's a little bit different than a Barry Sanders or Calvin Johnson in that Barry Sanders had kind of established his place in the game. He was already one of the top 2 or 3 running backs to ever play. Calvin Johnson's place in the game and history was sort of established. And Andrew had a lot of great moments. I mean, a lot of great moments and a lot of great comebacks and some very good years and 4 Pro Bowls and the comeback player of the year. But he didn't have a complete career.
No.
It was all about what was about to come. And so I think that's tough. I think it's tough for fans who thought when they drafted Luck and saw him play, they thought, man, we're set.
He was a prodigy. I mean,
I keep coming back to we thought last year the Colts-Chiefs game, regardless of what you thought of the outcome, we walked out of that stadium thinking, man, these 2 teams are going to be going at it in the playoffs for years. Both have good quarterbacks. Both seem set up. And this is where we're going to be. And now the Colts don't have they don't have the guy who was the most important piece. Like,
right.
He was the starter for a reason. He was over Jacoby Brissett for a reason. And so they don't have that top 5-ish type player. And so, yeah, I think if you're a Colts fan, you're going, man, I thought we were set for 6 or 7 or 8 years, and now I don't know. And that's tough.
It is hard. Though, again, I will say, growing up in Chicago, you're spoiled, Colts fans. You got Peyton Manning, you got Andrew Luck.
Yeah, but here's the thing about sports. People do not care if they're spoiled.
I know, you're right. You're right. I'm just telling you, if you can zoom out and have a little perspective, the fans in Chicago have dealt with the Rex Grossman era, the Jay Cutler era, the Eric Kramer era. None of it's been particularly great.
They don't care about no one cares about that they've gotten to see stuff. They want to see more.
They want to see more. And you're right. And what they didn't see was an Andrew Luck Super Bowl. They saw one AFC Championship appearance. They never saw an MVP. They didn't see the things that we all thought he was. And to
have Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck for as long as they have, and to have just one Super Bowl out of it, I get why a fan would be like, man.
Yeah, no, it's disappointing. You're kind of like almost a Packer fan right now. You're looking at Aaron Rodgers and you're going, oh man, I kind of thought we'd get more than one.
And they have 2.
Yeah, they have 2.
Like they have 2 once they have Brett Favre has one and Aaron Rodgers has one. The Colts didn't get the second one from the number 12 that they thought they were going to get.
Exactly. And so that is a disappointment. And again, yeah, I think Greg Doyle, our colleague, wrote this column today, is that his career from forever will probably be seen through the lens of this retirement. Mm-hmm. What could have been. I mean, was it a great career? Of course. He had an amazing comebacks, and the things that he's done for the city are incredible. And I should say, Frank Reich did address this. Andrew Luck's story is not over. There are plenty of things he's going to accomplish outside of football that will probably be great, and we'll be paying attention and seeing what those things are. But as a football player, on the field, on the gridiron, it never got to the peak, I don't think, that we all thought there was, especially when he came out of Stanford as like the highest rated quarterback since Peyton Manning, right?
I think there is one thing we didn't address. I think the thing that some people are talking about is whether or not the Colts organization is to blame. Not the brain trust that's here now.
Yes.
But overall from the like how he got hurt.
I've seen some of this written before, yeah.
You don't want your quarterback sacked as much as Luck was. You don't want a quarterback to have to go through injuries the way he has. But I think a little bit, and I'm not trying to say something negative about Andrew Luck here. I think it's being missed a little bit that there are other quarterbacks who've been through some injuries. I mentioned Aaron Rodgers earlier. He's broken collarbones, and he played with a tear in his calf, and I'm going to forget some of them. Brett Favre is a guy who played every single game and broken thumbs and torn ligaments. And I know for a fact he threw one touchdown pass with a concussion, which is really bad, and no one should do that.
Right.
But he did it. And so, and I don't think that it was. I think it's important to say that Andrew Luck has had a lot of injuries. That let's not minimize the rest of the NFL and what the rest of the NFL has gone through, because I think there's a lot of guys who've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And played through a lot of injuries and played through a lot of pain. And so is the Colts organization to blame for this? You don't want your quarterback to get hit as much as he was, and that's bad. And they should have done more to address the line and protect him and maybe keep him out of harm's way. Here's the thing. I know people talk about him holding on to the ball too long, but there's scheme ways to get around that and kind of force your quarterback to throw it a little faster. There just are.
No, but he also...
And to me, it's just like looking at that, it's like, I think if you want to, you can place blame there. But also, I think it just comes down to Andrew Luck made a decision that not a lot of players do, in that he didn't want to keep in the cycle of pain and injury and rehab. And for some guys, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone likes it, but I think for some guys, they're okay with it and okay with coming back and coming back and coming back.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
There's plenty of blame to go around, but I also don't think it's almost blame is almost like one of those we talked about stages of grief with Jim Irsay with the denial and bargaining and things like that. Blaming is anger is one of them, and trying to find blame as to who deserves the blame for this is a part of it.
I don't think I can think. I'm trying right now. Russell Wilson, I don't think has been hurt real bad, but he's been hit a lot.
He's played by a bad offensive line for a long time.
He's been hit a lot in Seattle. I'm trying to think of a quarterback in the NFL who hasn't dealt with a lot of injuries. And it's really difficult. You could say Drew Brees because he's played everything, but he also, his shoulder almost like fell off.
Yeah. The reason he was not a Charger anymore is because they didn't think his shoulder was going to reattach.
And it's the reason it's the reason he never became a Dolphin. Yeah. They didn't think they couldn't clear him.
I think most successful quarterbacks that have long careers.
Tom Brady had the ACL.
Go through significant injuries.
And again, that's not to minimize what Andrew Luck's gone through. It's terrible to have a lacerated kidney. It's terrible to miss a season for a shoulder. It's bad to have a concussion. It's bad to have all that stuff. All I'm saying is, and Andrew Luck would say this himself and has said himself in the past, what he's gone through is not necessarily unique in a league where players go through injury and pain all the time. And so I think if you want to assign blame there, he definitely shouldn't have gotten hit as much. But even if he hadn't gotten hit as much, that doesn't mean he wouldn't get hurt.
No, I think you could not get hit as much, but you can blame Luck for that, for being the guy who told Bruce Arians, I'm going to go tackle. If I throw an interception, I'm going to go tackle him myself. Or the fact that he wasn't a great slider early in his career. I mean, there's a lot of the offensive line wasn't great around him, but you could play that game forever. I mean, if you wanted to, and you can also bring in Luck. A lot of guys take big hits, but they don't get like bad luck, not luck. Andrew Luck. Mm-hmm. He just had bad luck. Some of the hits that he took were worse than the other hits that other quarterbacks take. I mean, there's all kinds of things if you want to play the blame game, but I think your overall point is the right one. He just decided that he wanted to end this cycle of pain and recovery, and so.
And it doesn't mean that he's not tough. He obviously played through pain. Definitely. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means that he made a decision that most NFL players don't.
I agree. So on the next episode of Sports Psychologists with Jim and Joel, we will talk more. I mean, that's what I feel like we're talking more about mentalities and psyches and things like that.
Yeah, and I again, this is something I don't like to do, but that's sort of the situation we've been placed in.
That's what it is right now, right? So like I said after the first episode, maybe we'll talk some football the next one, and we were fortunate enough to be able to do that. We might be able to talk some football after this next preseason game, which will be utterly meaningless for the most part. We'll still see some guys that have a chance to make the team. Maybe we'll talk about that. Who knows? Or we'll still be talking about Andrew Luck fallout day like 6. I don't know. What it'll be interesting. I wanted you to get a chance. The stories, this probably won't get posted until Tuesday morning, I'm guessing, Tuesday afternoon, this podcast. And so where will you be on Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon that people can look forward to?
I am going to go somewhere and try to find out about Jacoby Brissett before he was a Colt.
You're so secretive. You're not even going to say where you're going?
Yeah, I'm not going to say.
No, it's not even going to post until tomorrow. You'll already be there by the time anybody hears this.
I'm going to try to go to New England and see what we can get. There's a lot of guys there who still were there before, and I think it's just part of his story that hasn't been told. So I don't think
I think it's going to be fascinating to hear from those guys who knew him early in his career, and I think you're going to be able to tell a story that a lot of people haven't heard before, and this is going to be the new face. I mean, guy's the new face of the franchise. We need to know.
Yeah, he has a real chance. I think
for this year.
Well, everybody talks about stopgaps and draft picks and stuff like that. Jacoby Brissett has a chance here to earn this job.
Yep. So that will be, I think, probably the overarching story of the season, and so I can't wait to read what you're going to write.
Yeah, the story of the early part of the season is going to be no Andrew Luck, and the full story now is Jacoby Brissett.
Correct. And so we will get to that. We'll be talking about that for the next 17 weeks in a row here coming up. So that should be a lot of fun. We all look forward to what you're going to be writing off of that. And so, yeah, come back and join us, and hopefully you'll have read that story, and we can talk about it in the next podcast and talk about some football finally, maybe a little bit. All right, thanks for joining us.